Okay, let's get it. Black girl magic dripping. Yeah, she's on a mission. Keeping our culture lifted. Now you can watch and listen. Tammi Mac. Tammi Mac. Oh, what show is that? It's Tammi Mac show on Fox. So, Tammi Mac. Tammi Mac. Yeah. Who that? Tammi Mac. Tammi Mac. Hey, so you know it's Tammi Mac. Hey, Tammi Mac.
Welcome to the Tammi Mac Late Show on Fox Soul. Good evening, everyone. I'm Tammi Mac. When we spoke to cancer survivors earlier this month in honor of National Cancer Survivors Day, we learned that when it comes to cancer survival is just the beginning. We barely scratched the surface the last time we spoke to that group of incredible cancer survivors, or as they describe themselves, cancer warriors. So they're back, and we will dive even deeper to find out what it's like to survive cancer and get a second lease on life. The business of being Black tonight is surviving cancer. Please welcome to the show actor and breast cancer survivor Nakia Gamby Turner, cancer warrior. My bad. Hey, Nakia.
Hey, how's it going?
Entrepreneur, speaker, and prostate cancer warrior, Robert Ginyard. Hi, Robert.
Hi, Tammy. Good evening, everyone.
Senior consultant with United Healthcare and testicular cancer survivor, or rather cancer warrior, Timothy Nelson. Hi, Tim.
Hi, Tammy. How are you? How everybody doing?
Just fine. Writer and breast cancer warrior, Marie A. Sutton. Hi, Marie.
Hi, good evening, Tammy.
Good evening to you. So I want everyone to understand why you call yourself cancer warriors before we get started, because I think the world has pretty much agreed and unanimously decided that cancer survivor was a good title. How do you feel about titles at all, and why the word cancer warrior? What is the difference? Nakia, let's roll with you.
So wait, I'm sorry. Ask me the question one more time.
Okay. So why do you refer to yourself as a cancer warrior?
Because it was such a hard, it was a fight. It was like a fight to the finish. I think survivorship is weird because so many people have survived a lot of things, there's so many things that you survive, but when you are in the middle of like a fight for your life, it's a war. It's a war with your mind. It's a war with your heart. It's a war with the doctors. It's a war. Yeah. And you just try to figure out how to live afterwards. I don't think survivor is a bad word. I just don't know what else I think warrior is just a better way of looking at it. Knights are not necessarily survivors. They're just gifted warriors until they have their, pleasant death, I guess they call it, sometimes if you think about warriors in the olden days and how, you want it to go out necessarily. But this is something that is just put upon you. And it literally is how you fight it is what makes you the survivor.
A gladiator is what I think of.
Yeah.
A gladiator.
Yes,
yeah. Marie,
indeed.
How do you feel?
And no great warrior comes out unscathed.
Marie, how do you feel about the term cancer survivor versus cancer warrior? It doesn't really matter, or does it?
Well, definitely when the doctor called and told me that I was cancer free, I was very proud to wear the title survivor. But I think, it makes me feel good when I hear you say warrior, gladiator, because, you survive a bad day, you survive traffic. But I think warrior or gladiator really tells a truer story, because just like Nakia said, it is a battle. It is a war. And it's a battle for your life. And so I like gladiator. I like warrior.
Tim, I see you shaking your head in agreement here.
Because I think about David and Goliath. David had to put on his armor.
Yeah.
He was small. He wasn't ready. It was a rock, a slingshot, whatever he could do for war at that moment. And when you're getting told something about your body, it's war. You got to decide in that moment, you're going to live or die. And even for me, I'll add this because I didn't really get to give full context in the last show. So when I was around 23, I had a false positive test of HIV, false positive test. was told that I had to take like 4 or 5 tests. They told me that there wasn't enough in my system to ever transmit to anyone. But I remember when Robert talked about stress. So you fast forward 15 years later, when I was 37 years old and I got hit with the cancer, the first thing my oncologist told me, he was like, nothing, when I look at your numbers and stuff, you shouldn't be dealing with this, because it was called sarcoma, which can be related to HIV. And he says, what is going on in your life that's causing this? He said, because you're not sick on the inside. He said there was something going on with you, and it was, you know, so you're battling life every day. So you're going to be a warrior if you're going to live. And that's how I see it.
Yeah. Robert?
Well, I would say I love the term warrior because, quite frankly, we're all in a battle for something. You may not be battling cancer, but you may be battling something else in your life. So I think, you know, while we're here on earth, we're all battling something. So I think we're all warriors. Sometimes I worry about using the word survivor, because to me, sometimes it seems like you're leaving people behind. The people that succumbed to cancer, you know, was it that their life wasn't as valuable, if you will? Were they not blessed as much as you? And so I think, and probably the panel can agree with this, to a certain degree, you that survivorship, you kind of hold close and dear, because you know at the drop of a dime, it could have been you. And so I like warrior because everybody really fights some type of battle. Survivorship tells me, or to me, it creates almost the image that I'll skip you, I'll help Robert survive, but you didn't. And so when I use the term survivor, it's very limited, but I do like warrior because, again, we're all fighting a battle and people cheer you on when you're fighting that battle.
I kind of feel you when you say that, in terms of a survivor seems like it's only meant for those who live and not for those who die. But warrior sounds more as if it's meant for everyone in the fight.
Yes,
that's right.
Yes, indeed.
Yeah.
Yeah. And again, you know, that's, you know, and again, you survive, but again, I just don't like the way it's portrayed to some people that you weren't selected, you weren't the chosen one to make it through. And like I said, quite frankly, we are all battling, you know, different types of things every day, whether it's disease, mental stress, family, all of those things. And so we are all warriors, and we battle every day.
Tim, you said something that really struck me, and that was, you have to choose whether to live or die. Is it a choice when you are diagnosed with cancer?
It's mentally, you can will yourself to death when you're dealing with something, when a disease like this, if you choose not to think positive. That was the one thing my oncologist would say to me: you got to think positive. I would go to chemotherapy dressed with a fedora hat on and like I was going to a club, because I wanted to look that good while I was there. And I would also have to sit and wait for people who had way more issues going on than me. You know, 1 to 2 hours, and I'm waiting for my turn to sit in the chair. And it's a choice, because those people chose to come there, they chose to wait, and they chose to get their chemo. So it's a choice.
Nakia?
No, I completely agree with Tim. Your faith, your mental health, it all plays a part in your survivorship too. And again, as a warrior, I really had to compartmentalize, because you're literally just driving through this thing. Did I freeze again?
No.
Am I free? I feel like
you're here.
Sorry. Can you hear me okay though?
You're perfect, baby. Keep going.
Okay.
Yeah, we'll let you know. Now you're good and frozen. She spoke that into existence, didn't she?
Okay.
You have only been in remission for 2 years. I don't know if the word "only" is a good word there. You have been in remission for 2 years. How much does it help for cancer patients to have a community who have gone through what they've gone through? How much does that mean?
Oh, it's so important. And you're right. 2 years, they technically don't consider you a survivor until you've hit that 5-year mark. So I'm in a weird place where just praying that I will never have a recurrence, but community is so important, so important. You know, cancer sometimes can feel like a solitary journey. I mean, you're in the chair by yourself, and, you know, the drugs are going into your soul body.
Yeah.
But gosh, my husband, my children, my church, my parents, everyone, I felt like that's why Gladiator resonates, because I felt like I had literally a stadium of people cheering me on, praying me through. And so I felt like I didn't have to walk alone, because I would look to my left, look to my right, and I would see them saying, you can get through this. And they're still here for me.
That's beautiful. Robert?
Well, you know what's interesting about that, when Marie mentioned the stadium of people around you, you know, what's interesting about that is, while there's a cheering squad for you, only one person walks through that journey. And so while, you know, you get all of this support, it really can be a lonely journey. And that's why it's important to have that support network. You know, I'll tell you this, when I was going through my treatment, visiting the oncology ward, you know, once I got into that ward, everybody who was there, the cancer patients, we were family. And it got to a point that, you know, that place was more insulated and seemed more family than once we walked out that door. So there was some separation that went on, because in there, everybody was the same. No matter what your color, everybody was dealing with cancer there. And we all, it was a culture shock to, once you finished your treatment and you go out and face the world, you know, some people were like, you know what? I can't wait to get to my next appointment here tomorrow, because now I'm with people who feel like me. And so, so that can be a difficult path to navigate. But again, it's important to have that support network that really can drive you through that.
Soulmates, we see you in the chat room, and we're going to come to you next to find out what you have to say about surviving cancer on the Tammi Mack Late Show on Fox Soul. Welcome back to the Tammi Mack Late Show on Fox Soul, where tonight the business of being Black is surviving cancer. Please welcome actor and breast cancer survivor Nakia Gamby-Turner, also entrepreneur, speaker, and prostate cancer survivor Robert Ginyard, and senior consultant with United Healthcare and testicular cancer survivor Timothy Nelson, and writer and breast cancer survivor Marie A. Sutton. We're going to jump into this chat room real quick and see what everybody's saying. Tammy Black, what's up? Tammy Black says, hi, Tammi Mack. If you survive cancer, you can call yourself whatever you like. Hashtag cancer sucks. I think we all are in agreement with that. Therese says, of course they are survivors, warriors, gladiators, whatever they like is okay. And I thank God you all are well and alive to talk about your journeys. Wait, a false positive for HIV? Oh, geez, that's crazy. I can't even imagine the stress and agony hearing such a stigmatic diagnosis, and then to find out it's not true. I would sue. So, Tim, do you want to talk about that moment?
Yeah, definitely, and it was true. So let's be real. I just never had to take medicine for it, because there was not enough in my system that could transmit to anyone. So that's what so I took 4 more tests after the false positive. So that ties back to the cancer, because you fast forward 15 years later, and that's what the doctor was saying to me, was like, hey, this is related to this, but we don't know why, because there's nothing wrong with you as far as your blood that you should be sick. And that's why he felt that I was under a lot of stress in life. He said, you know, what are you dealing with? And I was, you know, I'm 40 something years, I'm 40. But I found that false positive, I went through that at 22, 37 with the cancer, molestation. So it's a lot in life that we go through, that we hold in, that eventually will eat away at us and cause us to go through things.
Yeah. So just so we're clear, you're saying you were diagnosed as HIV positive and had cancer?
Yeah, cancer was at 37. That was a sarcoma. The HIV was, and I had never talked about this publicly. So but I felt like I couldn't do this interview like I did without being totally transparent on how it happened. So Kaposi sarcoma comes from an HIV infection. For me, the doctor was unclear on why I was dealing with it, because there was nothing in my body that had gotten sick. I wasn't sick for it to come on like that. And I had, like I said, I had never been on any medication. So what he told me was, he said, Tim, I'm going to have to do chemo. And for the first time, you're going to have to accept medication. He said, I know you've never had to take it before. He said, but when you start this chemo, it's going to break your body down. That was the time in my life that I finally had to deal with this and cancer at the same time, because I had decided, because he told me I didn't have enough in my system to transmit to anybody, I would never deal with it. I never would talk about it. I would internalize
Wow.
it. Yeah. So when
Tim,
the cancer,
that is super duper heavy. First of all, we appreciate and respect that you shared that with our viewers at the Tammi Mac Late Show. But to say that you never received medication or you never really wanted to deal with it, I'm telling you, that is what most people go through. We are sick, we know it, and we don't want to deal with it. So to hear you say that really hits home.
And the blessing on that, well, it was a blessing and a curse for me, because I was so confused and lost on it, because he's like, he says, you'll probably take medicine when you're about 60. He said, because you're so healthy. And he said, I ran 4 or 5 tests on you. He said, because the doctor didn't believe it himself. So medically, if I went to a lab right now with somebody and took an HIV test, I would come back negative. But there's another test that a hospital can still take to find out at some point you did, this was traced in your system. So I called people before I did this second show, some close friends of mine that I finally told about this when I was dealing with cancer, because it was like a two-edged sword for me. I said, well, let me just tell them everything I'm going through. So I called people before this show and was like, hey, friends, what I told you at 37, 38, when I was dealing with the cancer that I told you guys I probably would never talk about ever, I'm going to talk about it. I said, because not just with the cancer, but with this, I can free somebody to let them know that you don't have to look like what you go through.
Yeah.
At the end of the day.
Yeah.
And the second thing for me was I was happy on the inside. It's sad to say I was happy that I went through cancer in Georgia and not in Los Angeles, because I went to Georgia initially to find myself again. I told my job I wanted to transfer. I want to start over in life and do something different. And I went there, and when I got hit with cancer in a foreign territory. It's foreign land for me. None of my best friends are not there. My crew is not there. But going through it without those people that I relied on for so many years, it made me find my inner strength, probably to do what I'm doing right now. The faith and belief in myself that, hey, don't be afraid to talk about what life has done to you, because you're still standing. And somebody else needs to hear what you have to say, so they'll know that life, there's no end to your life unless you decide you don't want to go forward with it. It's a choice. That's why I always tell people, it is a choice to live, because there was days in my life that I know I thought about suicide, different things I wanted to do to myself because I didn't understand why I was chosen. But then God said, I chose you because you can deal with it.
Ooh, well, that goes hand in hand with what our soulmates are saying. Vonda Holman Carter says, each of you represent the strong in our Black community, the strength in our Black community. I can believe that. But it's easier when you're outside to say that someone going through something is strong. I want to know, because what we've talked about, and I've talked about with you all, that's completely surprised and shocked me in a way, was how much you said the cancer affects you mentally. And I think most people think that it's a physical thing. And so I want to ask, how did your strength build? So thank you, Tim, for sharing how your strength became to be. But obviously you're given the diagnosis, and at some point you decide to live. Is that how this works, Nakia?
Yes. So in 2007, I was I just finished going, I had between 2004 and 2007, I don't really have a lot of memory of it, because I literally was on autopilot going through, trying to just get through it. And then I had 5 surgeries in 3 years. And in 2007, it was like I woke up in the Dominican. And when I did wake up, it was New Year's Day. It was midnight. We were all the fireworks were going off. And I was not going to return to California. I wasn't going to return back to the US. I was going to give myself to the ocean. And that's when God spoke to me in a booming voice. I literally am not a great swimmer. I love the ocean, but going out to the ocean, going into the ocean and walking out far, or pushing myself really far out into the ocean and watching my friends laugh and be happy, and me not knowing what was going on in my life or what I was doing or how I was going to get through or past all of this. And I just recently started sharing this with people myself, because it literally, I didn't want to break anyone's heart, and it broke my heart to know that I had gotten to such a low point. So after I came back, after I turned around and looked at my friends for what I thought was going to be the last time, God told me to take my little self back to the shore. And how dare I do that to my friends on their vacation? And as soon as I hit the US, I got therapy. I went to therapy. I went to a therapist because I had to choose life. I chose my life. I chose that. And even though I'm a child of God and I love the Lord with all of my heart, I just did not understand why it had to be me. My life was going so good. And I was like, what did I do? Why was it me? And then now I have a better understanding of why anything has to happen to anyone. It's a way of growing you, maturing you, allowing you to understand that God is always in charge, no matter how you think about it. And it's okay to be mad. It's okay to be frustrated. But if your will is stronger, if your will to live, and if your will to commune and be one with yourself. And it took me a while. It has still taken me a very long time to move past it, because then there's other traumas that come in that you don't realize that you have, because you've been dealing with this. I was praying that I didn't lose friends along the way. I didn't know how I actually got through this, but I know it was through the grace of God. And because even the people around you sometimes don't know how to handle what's going on. And they don't know how to handle you, and they don't know what to say. And that's okay. You don't have to know the answers, because we don't either. But what you can do is just try and be there for your friends, but we're gonna go through it, and we have to, and we have to do it ourselves. But the good news is that there are people out there that you can talk to, that are here for you. And most people, when they're going through it, as soon as they hear it, they're like, I can't, right? They're just like, okay, what do I do? And they'll come to you for a little bit of information, but that's why it's such a fight. And it continues, even when if you have something removed.
Well, I hear you saying that sometimes people you didn't know whether you were going to lose friends or keep friends. So I want to go to you, Robert. Is that something that you fear once you have cancer, that people will no longer be a part of your life?
Well, yeah, I think it's because when you hear that word, for the most part, it means death for most people. Mm-hmm. You just think, okay, I have it. How long? Now you're on the clock. And so that's what it means to most people when they hear the word cancer. But Tammi, I want to go back, because this is an example of even how you and this platform is being used to help people. Tim shared some information that he was so convicted after the last show that he came back to this show to share and that you are being used to get these stories out. And so it all gets back to the purpose in life. And I'm just, holding back a little bit of tears, because, God moves and makes things happen. It is no coincidence that he's on this show and you allowed him to share this platform, to share something that was convicting him, to call friends and say, hey, look, I'm going to be on part 2, and this is what I want to share. So I commend you for your platform and helping others, because there are plenty more people in the chat room and around the world who are seeing this. And I'm sure Tim's story, like all of our stories, are hopefully helping someone. And so the other thing is I think cancer also calls us to a higher purpose. Not that we're special, but we got plucked to deal with this. And now it's about that mindset. Yes, because you can accept the mindset of death and defeat. But once you do that, you've already cashed the chips in. And science will tell you, and the data supports it, that a more positive mindset helps you go through these journeys and these treatments. And for the most part, you have a better outcome. And so it's really about mindset. And I'm quite sure after we all had our issue with the Lord, where we told him how we felt, then it comes to that point like, okay, it's on now. Now I have to fight. And again, that's a self journey. That's something that we have to bring up. And again, you can have that crew around you that supports you, but it really starts within here and here to say, okay, I'm going to fight this and I'm going to give it my best. And again, that's all you can ask for a warrior. You give it your best shot. You may not make it long, but at least you are in there fighting and you extended life to that point.
Yeah, I have to say, I can't even
it definitely gives you a different sense of responsibility to yourself, to people, to things that you love, to, you know, I wish that it didn't often take drastic measures for things to change in people's lives, but sometimes that's just the way that it happens.
I had a my grad school teacher was diagnosed with cancer. And after she was diagnosed with cancer and she started teaching again, she would always say, it's not cancer. It's not cancer. If you had a problem or if there was something going on in your life that you couldn't deal with, she would always say, it's not cancer. It's not cancer. And it would kind of just jolt you back into, like, you know, perspective. And so I can't imagine having to deal with it when it is cancer, you know? And so I do commend you all for sharing your stories. We're going to take a quick break. The chat room is open. We'll come right back on the Tammi McLeod Show on Fox Soul. Welcome back to the Tammi McLeod Show on Fox Soul. Tonight, the business of being Black is surviving cancer. And the reason why I did this show, why we're having this show, is because so much talk when we talk about the things that we go through is about the disease itself and what it does to your body. But this show is exclusively about, yeah, you're going through it, but you also got through it. And it's about the how. How do you get through it? And what is it that you're getting through? Because a lot of times people tell their stories and how they got through it, but we don't know what the hell they went through. So it doesn't help us. We like, huh? So I appreciate this panel for talking about specifically what it is that they went through in a real way, in a tangible way, so that we know, oh, it was that, and that. So I can handle this, and this. And I think that's very important when we talk about our stories in terms of the specificity of it. Right. I'm going to the chat room here. Nakia, a very good friend, has been diagnosed with breast cancer. Do you believe with all the money being collected for this disease that there is no cure? People are still dying. That's a good question. We have a ton of cancer organizations, and cancer seems to raise a lot of money for research. Do you all believe that cancer will have a cure?
I believe that there's a cure for everything. I just think that you just have to have the right amount of money and the right people. That's what I believe. But that's all. I'm a maybe conspiracy theorist.
Okay, Marie, your thoughts?
But you know, I think there is.
Marie?
That's a good question. Gosh, I would hope that there's not some cure locked away in a box and so many people have had to suffer and die. I do know that having gone through this journey, I realized that environment, what you take into your body, can contribute to you getting closer to cancer. So, and we talked about the mental headspace, what you're taking in to your mind, into your body, into your soul can manifest into cancer. So while people are looking for a cure, I feel like there's some things that perhaps we can do, make sure that what we're putting in to our bodies, into our minds, into our spirits, is not something that is dangerous and deadly.
Yeah. Robert, as a result of your prostate cancer journey, you were inspired to create the awareness campaign and lifestyle brand. Dream it, believe it, do it, be it.
Ibby dibby.
Dibby dibby. And for me, it doesn't necessarily have to be about cancer, right?
Right. Well, and Tammy, it is Dibby Dibby was the result of a lot of deferred dreams. After my prostate cancer journey, very quick story. I had a conversation with the Lord, and I said, "Look, God, when you get me through this, I'm going to go after some dreams and do some things that I've always wanted to do." And long story short, about a year after I made that promise to the Lord, I was laying up in bed and I didn't do a darn thing. And it was a restless night. And Dibby Dibby just kind of came out of nowhere. The Lord spoke to me and said, "Hey, look, this is your new mantra." And, that has been a wake up call for me to get out, make my dreams happen. Because I got to tell you, and this kind of dovetails back to what Marie was saying, I think the deferment of our dreams and our goals has a way of manifesting itself in certain parts of our bodies. And you combine that with environmental factors, you combine that with the other mental things and stimuli that you have going on. I think though that is the perfect breeding ground for cancer to start in some form of fashion. The way we eat and what we consume, all of those factors, I think, play a big role. And so, again, Dibby Dibby was my expression to help other people say, look, I don't want you to get cancer before you realize how important your dreams are. And I'm just a firm believer that the more that you take care of self, yourself will take care of you. I always hear people say, "Hey, well, how's life treating you?" No, the question is how are you treating life? Ooh. And how is it treating you back? Ooh. And because you control that, and it gets back to faith. The power rests in the tongue. Now, there's a flip side to that, because sometimes, when the church talks about that, sometimes we don't even acknowledge that there are issues. So, you may say, "Hey, well, I've been having this back pain and this kidney pain and shoulder pain." And somebody may say, "Oh, well, that's the devil talking." Hey, that's the power of the tongue. Don't pay attention to that. And so that's a case where, hey, look, if your body is telling you something, the power of the tongue is maybe go see a doctor. Right. And so we have to be careful about the power of the tongue, because the power of the tongue can heal, but it also can harm.
Yeah. Right. And also, I think that people take for granted the trauma that is inherent with African Americans. I mean, we have a trauma that exists long before we enter into the world. So that definitely plays a part in how our health manifests. So go ahead, Nakia.
I think a lot of people don't understand too that everyone has cancer cells in their body. So cancer is not just something that just comes and seeps inside you. The cells are already there. It's just where they accumulate, which is why it is, they become a cluster, and then they become they can metastasize or become a tumor or something like that. So it literally, I think that people are thinking like, because you're diagnosed with cancer, you're like, well, where the heck did it come from? I didn't, did I kiss somebody? Did I eat something? Did I blah, 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 blah? Did I whatever? But, we can't necessarily we can't control the elements that bring it all to come to one spot, because even for breast cancer women, you could have taken the pill and, you could have taken the pill because it has too much estrogen, and the side effect is breast cancer or ovarian cancer. Or you could have just create too much estrogen, or you could have been pregnant and not breastfed, or you could be pregnant and breastfed and you still get ductal carcinoma in situ. It's just, that's the thing. There's no rhyme or reason to it, which is why I think there's no real actual cure for it, because it manifests itself how it does. And I think, the teacher with the cancer, I want to go back to that. It's not cancer, but I think everybody has their form of cancer. I would never negate anybody's issues or their problems, because just because I physically had cancer, I may not have anything else that any other traumas that someone else necessarily went through, but it can feel like a cancer. It could feel like death. It could feel like your mind is dying. You still have to go back to what you know. And, even for me, I am an actor because I had cancer. I was sitting behind a desk and, you know, not happy in my life and not doing anything. I left for 2 years to figure out what it is that I
that
want.
is the reason why? Do you think because you begin to live your dreams helped you to survive cancer?
Absolutely. Absolutely. But I had to figure out what the problem was first. I just knew I wasn't happy, and I knew that I was sad, and I knew that I was still here, but I didn't know why.
I know
But
Tim wanted to get in here on this. So Tim, go ahead.
So I was going to say it's also a lifestyle choice, because for me, I smoked cigarettes for many years and cigars.
I was vegan.
So you know, cool Filter Kings and Newport Shorts and Black and Miles were my go-tos, my high school years, my 20s, and the beginning of my 30s. So when I say it's a choice to live, it's a choice. So when I was laying in the hospital,
I was a vegan for 8 years. I was a vegan for 8 years.
See, right.
At 30 years old, I was still diagnosed with cancer.
Right.
Because either I was on the pill, they think it's because I was on the pill, or because I was creating too much estrogen, and then I got on it. They don't know. The truth is, they just don't. They can't pinpoint it.
It's interesting. You say you were a smoker, and she's like, I was vegan, and people are always saying, well, don't eat the meat, and you know, the vegan lifestyle is the best lifestyle, and then you find out a vegan has cancer too.
Yeah.
I think that is Nakia's point. Nakia's point is that it could happen to anyone at any time. And if they knew how it came about, they would be able to affirmatively say, don't do this.
Right.
And then affirmatively find a cure for it. And no one has been able to do that. Robert, according to the CDC, about 13% of men will get prostate cancer. What's the best way for men to stay on top of their prostate health?
I'm a big proponent of early screening and checking your family history. That's something I don't think we, as a Black community, we do enough of. We always want to find out what origin of the world we came from, but we don't want to hear the stories about who had cancer and liver cancer and diabetes and all of that. Those are the stories that nobody wants to talk about at the barbecue. So we have to step forward and provide the next generation with our health lineage, so they know how to make healthy choices along the way, that maybe you still may get cancer, but at least you're taking the progressive steps to ward that off to some later date if you can. And so I think the biggest thing is early detection and screening for prostate cancer. But again, it's really knowing the history, not so much geographic, but really what is in your blood, what's the lineage of your family. And that, I think, will tell the story and help us prevent diseases along the way.
That's a good point. We're going to take a quick break and come right back on the Tammi Mac Lade Show on Fox Soul. Welcome back to the Tammi Mac Lade Show on Fox Soul, where tonight the business of being Black is surviving cancer. Look, it doesn't have to be an awareness month to talk about issues that face the Black community. We need to talk about these things on a frequent basis. That's how I feel about it. That's how we feel about it here at the Tammi Mac Lade Show. Tim, I have been doing a lot of panels recently about advocacy in terms of healthcare. And you shared with me a story about going into the hospital, having a lump in your neck, I believe. And I'll have you share that story, and then I'll tell people why I want you to share the story.
Okay, when I was in the hospital and they had did the one biopsy on my leg to determine that I had the sarcoma cancer, another doctor came the next morning because they felt there was a lump here in my neck and they wanted to do a biopsy there. And I asked them a question. I said, you know, you guys already cut me once, and I think I've been told it's cancer in the leg. And I said, so I don't think I want to do the neck yet. I said, let me get to see my oncologist and see what he says. And I was just thankful that he agreed with me, because he felt like if I treat the chemo for about 4 months on you, and if your neck goes down and your growing area goes down, I won't have to cut you. But if this first chemo doesn't work that we're going to treat the sarcoma with, I'm going to have to cut you open. And I to this day, I haven't been cut open, but like I said, I go every 4 months just to make sure.
I think that a lot of people, and particularly we Black folk, we don't advocate for ourselves because we see the doctors as being the educated, the experienced, the skilled, and we don't want to go against what they say. But sometimes we're the only ones who have our best interest at hand. And we already know how we're treated in America, period, let alone when you go into a hospital, how you may be treated as a Black person and the judgments that are placed upon you before you even give them a medical card. So it's very important to advocate and to tell the doctors what you want, as opposed to listening to them tell you what you
and Tammy, I told the doctor, I said, just so you know, I've been with United Health Group for, it was 20 years at that point. I said, I've been in the health field a long time. I said, I may look young to you. I said, but I've been in this field and I know how it works before you talk to me. That's just what I said to you.
Surgeons want a surgery. And even though I didn't want to, I didn't want to believe what was happening, it was still happening. And also, I had precancer, what is called precancer. Ductal carcinoma in situ is like, it didn't spread anywhere. And it's not technically called cancer, but it could turn into cancer eventually. So you should do something about it right now. So, but it was too large of a span of space for me to have a lumpectomy. So I had to have a mastectomy, but I also had a mastectomy on my left side just so I didn't have to deal. But it was also, I had to work it out and convince them to I'm not going to have chemo. I didn't have chemo or radiology. I have seen my oncologist. I'm 16 years cancer free. After my 5th year of seeing my oncologist, I was like, do I need to come back here? I don't have breast anymore. You said it was gone. I have to trust that it's not going to come back to me. Also, they wanted to put me on another, on some pills that were kind of like chemo for 5 years. And they had a massive amount of side effects. And I was like, I already have gained so much weight. I've swollen up the gills, I can't do anything. What else alternative can I do to make sure that I'm fine? And I've only really been doing alternative medicine ever since, making sure that I take the right vitamins. I make sure that my food is right. I don't snack. I try to just make sure I'm okay internally, because I don't want to, have another version of what this is. But advocacy is key. Whenever someone tells you something, research it yourself. Find people who have been
it's a
through
very
it.
difficult thing to do, because you think you're paying these doctors and they know what's right for you. So it's very difficult to think that you should go against them. Marie, I want to get back to something that you said when you said Gladiator is a good reference. And you said you like the word gladiator because it's almost like you're in the middle of a stadium and you have all these people around you. So I want to know, who was the person that really, in particularly, that was significant in getting you through your cancer? And why were they so significant? And more importantly, what we all want to know is, what did they do that helped you get through it?
Gosh, so many people, but to pick one, I'll say certainly my husband, James. I remember the first time I got chemotherapy. Immediately after you get chemo, you're on a steroid for the first few days. So you feel good. You're like, okay, I can deal with this. But then it hits you. And I specifically remember the night it hit. And I was so weak, I could not even sit up on the toilet. And I was sick on both ends from top to bottom. And he held me together while I was like literally a mess and didn't bat an eye. He cleaned up my mess. And, he was just there. I still continued to work my job, but I would come home from work and I would immediately get in the bed, and I wouldn't get out of the bed until the next morning just to get up and go to work. So he had to fulfill all the roles. I would hear them upstairs eating dinner, cooking, all of that. So he had to step in and do both of those things. And I will never forget that, because it was tough. It was tough.
This is another thing. You're a mother, right?
Yes, I'm a mother.
So this is something that I want to talk to you about, and that's mothering. Mother's mother. So what does that mean for a mother to not be able to mother? How does that affect you?
Ooh, that is that's hard. Because
To hear your husband dealing with the kids and making the dinner and making the breakfast and even, changing your diapers, for lack of a better visual. How does, because mothers are the ones that take care of everybody. Now you're the one being taken care of. How does that make you feel as a mother?
It was a transition. We were talking earlier about strength. I was accustomed to being that strong person, the strong friend, the strong this, but I literally had to yield, to just lay in the bed. And it's like the roles changed. My kids would come and tend to me. It was just crazy, check on me, make sure I had what I needed, give me my medicine, the roles reversed. And at first it was hard to let go, but I literally had no choice but just to yield.
Yeah. Robert, you sit on the board of directors of Zero, the End of Prostate Cancer. What kind of work is Zero doing? And do you think there will ever be an end to prostate cancer? Much like the question I asked, is there a cure for cancer ever? Will there be?
Well, Tammy, I sure will put every ounce of energy I have into getting a cure. But I'll also say this, that I think the cure is also holistic in that, we have to line up the mind, body, and the spirit. And I think that's on us to do. I do think, I wish one of the things that came out of COVID, to see the expediency in terms of coming up with that vaccine. Now that was quick and fast, and it got here. Now the other thing is
fast and questionable.
Yes, well, but it's been in the works for a while, so it didn't just happen as fast as people thought.
Right.
But I would like to see that same kind of approach taken towards cancer, particularly all types of cancers, but of course in my field it's prostate cancer. But I'd like to see that same kind of energy go behind and get behind finding a cure for cancer. But I think there's some things that we all can do in terms of, like I said, diet, mind, body, and spirit. Some things to take us out of that system, if you will, to even get to that point. So that's kind of where my energy is with Zero, and making sure that we bridge that gap in terms of disparities between Black men and white men with cancer. We are twice as likely to die from the disease. And when we get it, it's always, in most cases, more aggressive. So those are some of the things in terms of my advocacy work that I really work hard to do.
We're going to take a quick break, come right back on the Tammi Mac Late Show on Fox Soul. Welcome back to the Tammi Mac Late Show on Fox Soul. We're wrapping up our discussion about surviving cancer with a bunch of these cancer gladiators we have on our panel today. So let's find out what you're doing that has absolutely nothing to do with cancer. Like you shouldn't be defined by cancer, should you? Nakia, let's start with your resume. Your film 12-Hour Shift is on Hulu, and you're also in the last season of HBO's Insecure. Which episode can we see you on Insecure? Everybody watching that.
Episode 5. It's a really good episode. I'm also on the Upshells. I forgot to mention that too. Currently on Netflix. I'm on episode 8 of that. I'll be on episode 13 of Good Girls, and
girl, we'll be talking all night if you're trying to figure out what you own. Robert, your podcast.
Yeah, thank you, Jesus. I worked so hard to get here.
Nakia is the girl you're jealous of when you're scrolling. Just let that. Damn, she got another job. Robert, your podcast, Intentionally Overheard with Robert Ginyard.
Yes, I am so happy with that project. It is a podcast where I invite people on to talk about their life story, particularly as it pertains to following their dreams. And so I ask them the ups and downs, and I try to, even some of the noteworthy people who come on the show, I try to strip it down to finding out who that person is in the heart, mind, and body and spirit, rather than what you may know about them. So we really try to stay with what makes them them and what's their why in life. So Intentionally Overheard, that's my baby.
Where can we see the podcast?
Actually, it's audio, and you can find it on all the podcast platforms.
Oh, perfect. All right, Marie, tell us about that sexy book of yours, A.G. Gaston, Motel in Birmingham, a civil rights landmark.
Yes, there's a motel in Birmingham where years ago during the civil rights movement, Black people couldn't stay at hotels, nice hotels. And so there's a motel in Birmingham that was owned by a Black millionaire, A.G. Gaston. And Dr. King was there. All sorts of celebrities were there because that's where they could stay. It became a headquarters during the movement. It was bombed, etc. So I wrote a book about the story about this motel and its significance to the African-American culture.
That's wonderful. Timothy, United Healthcare. Oh, talk to me.
United Healthcare, you know, I'm still there. I'm going to be there probably for a little while longer, but I will say doing this has made me go back to my love of being an advocate for people and a motivational speaker. I told people I'm never supposed to be a preacher because that's my daddy and my brother, but I am someone that can encourage you. I'm going to use this platform and do that. Yeah, definitely, Tammi.
Yeah. As you should. I mean, listen. Yeah, you should absolutely be a motivational speaker. You know how I feel about you. I feel like I can't even say it on TV. I don't even want people going, you know, I don't mean no harm, but other people will be calling me out. So I can't do it. You know how I feel. Thank you all for being on the Tammi Mack Late Show on Fox Soul. And until next time, it's a blessing to be in your box. Bye, y'all.
Thank you for having me.